My parents invited my abuser to our family dinner, then told me to grow up. So I cut ties forever and they're begging for contact. I've always been the scapegoat of my family. If something went wrong, broken glass, missing keys, a ruined dinner, I was somehow to blame. Even when I wasn't home, even when I had proof I couldn't have done it. It didn't matter. I was the difficult one, too emotional, too sensitive. That's what my mom always said. Usually right after I'd burst into tears from being yelled at for something my brother actually did. He was the golden child. Always. If he broke a rule, it was boys will be boys. If I so much as rolled my eyes, I was disrespectful and dramatic. It was like he got extra credit just for existing, and I lost points just for breathing wrong. I remember once when I was 8, my brother pushed me into a coffee table and I split my lip open. My mom rushed in, saw the blood, and without asking a single question, yelled at me for roughhousing in the living room. My brother just stood behind her, wide-eyed and silent. Later, he got ice cream. I got grounded. That was the pattern. I walked on eggshells while he walked on red carpets. I spent my teenage years apologizing for feelings I didn't know how to hide. If I cried, I was manipulative. If I stood up for myself, I was ungrateful, and for a long time, I believed them. I really thought maybe I was just broken, that something was wrong with me, but looking back now, I realize those weren't misunderstandings. That wasn't just tough love, it was the setup. They needed someone to blame so they could feel like a perfect family, and I was the easiest one to sacrifice. Thought being the scapegoat was the worst thing they could do to me. I didn't know how much worse it was going to get. I was 16 when everything shifted. It was supposed to be just another one of my parents' summer barbecues. The backyard smelled like charcoal and sizzling meat. Laughter spilled from every corner, and the adults were drinking and talking like they didn't have a care in the world. He was there, as always, their close family friend. I'll call him Mark. He'd been at every birthday, every Christmas, every 4th of July since I could remember. He brought expensive wine and told corny jokes. Everyone loved him. I was carrying a tray of cups to the kitchen when he followed me inside. I remember the screen door slamming softly behind him, the music from outside suddenly muffled. He cornered me near the fridge. His hand landed on my wrist, firm, not playful. I froze. He leaned close, his breath thick with beer, and whispered things I don't want to repeat. When I tried to move past him, he blocked me. It felt like the walls closed in. I eventually shoved him hard enough to slip by and ran upstairs to the bathroom, locking the door with shaking hands. My heart pounded like a drum. I stared at myself in the mirror, cheeks flushed, hands trembling, whispering, "Did that really just happen?" Later that night, I told my parents. My voice cracked, but I got the words out. My mom's face hardened halfway through. My dad crossed his arms. "Mark, are you serious?" My mom scoffed. "He's known us for years," my dad added. "Why would he do that to you?" I said I wasn't lying, that he grabbed me. My mom sighed like I was being dramatic again. "You probably misunderstood. He's like family." I felt something inside me break. They didn't believe me. They didn't even hesitate. And when they walked back outside to laugh with him like nothing happened, I realized I was completely alone. The following weekend, my parents called me downstairs. Their faces were set in that cold, controlled expression they used whenever they thought I was being difficult. My stomach sank before they even spoke. "Mark's here," my dad said flatly. "We're going to clear the air." Every part of me wanted to run. My hands went clammy, my chest tightened. But my mom grabbed my shoulder and steered me toward the living room. He was sitting on the couch like he owned the place, legs crossed, relaxed, a smug little smile on his face. When our eyes met, I felt the same cold dread from that night. My mom started the talk. She said I'd misunderstood what happened, that he was deeply hurt by my accusation, hurt, like he was the victim. I wanted to scream, but my dad's voice cut through. "You're going to apologize, and we're going to put this behind us." Mark leaned forward, pretending to look wounded, then gave a wide, insincere grin. "No hard feelings," he said, like I was a child who spilled a drink on his carpet. I stared at him. I wanted to tell them everything again, louder this time. I wanted to shake them and ask why they didn't care. But my mom's nails dug into my arm, a silent warning. "Go on," my dad said. My throat burned. The words scraped their way out. "I'm sorry," Mark extended his hand. I didn't want to touch him, but my parents' eyes were locked on me, so I shook it. His grip was too tight, and he gave a small, victorious pat on my hand before letting go. That night, I locked myself in my room and cried until my pillow was soaked. Downstairs, I could hear them laughing with him like nothing ever happened. In that moment, something fundamental cracked inside me. They didn't just refuse to protect me, they handed me to him on a silver platter. After that night, something inside me withered. I stopped speaking at dinner. I avoided eye contact. I stopped caring about school. My grades, once decent, tanked. I'd sit in class staring through the whiteboard like I wasn't even there. I stopped brushing my hair some mornings. I wore the same hoodie for days. Teachers started pulling me aside, asking if everything was okay, and I always said, "I'm fine." What else could I say? No one ever believed me. At home, my mom told relatives I was acting out and craving attention. At one family gathering, I heard her say it loud enough for me to catch. "Teenage girls are so dramatic these days." My aunt nodded like it was a phase I'd outgrow. My brother was even worse. One day I came home and found he'd scribbled "crazy betch" on my bedroom mirror in dry erase marker. I confronted him and he just laughed. "You need meds," he said, walking away like I was the punchline to some private joke. I begged my mom to let me see a therapist. She rolled her eyes. "You just want someone to take your side." When I asked my dad, he didn't even look up from his laptop. "We're not wasting money on your attitude problem." So I tried going to the one adult outside my house I thought might help, my school counselor. I broke down in her office, told her everything. She looked at me with pity and said, "That's awful, but it sounds like a family matter." I remember walking home that day, numb. I couldn't feel the wind. I couldn't hear the traffic. Everything felt like it was happening through glass. I stopped recognizing my own reflection. I didn't feel real anymore, and I started to wonder if no one else saw me, maybe I didn't actually exist. When I turned 18, I left and never looked back. College wasn't just a fresh start, it was an escape. I moved 4 hours away with nothing but a beat-up suitcase and a desperate need to breathe. The silence in my dorm room was the first time I'd ever felt safe. No footsteps pacing the hallway outside my door. No voices calling me difficult through clenched teeth. I enrolled in therapy through campus services. My first session, I sat stiffly on the couch and whispered, "My family thinks I'm broken." The therapist just nodded and said, "Maybe it's time to stop believing them." That sentence alone cracked something open inside me. Over time, I started rebuilding. I got a part-time job at a bookstore. I began sleeping through the night again. I dyed my hair, something my mom would have called attention-seeking. And for the first time, I liked what I saw in the mirror. I blocked my parents' numbers. I didn't go home for the holidays. It was bliss. Until one afternoon, nearly a year later, my phone lit up with an unfamiliar number. I answered without thinking. "Hi, honey," my mother's voice chirped. My stomach clenched. She said they were hosting a big family dinner that weekend. "Just come home for one night. Your brother will be there. Everyone wants to see you." She used that sing-song tone she always pulled out when she wanted something. I didn't respond right away. My therapist's voice echoed in my head. "You don't owe anyone access to your peace." But then my mom said, "We miss you." That one sentence cut deeper than I expected. A flicker of hope. A small voice inside me whispered, "Maybe they've changed. Maybe this time will be different." So I said yes, and that one decision unraveled everything I had built. The night of the dinner, my hands wouldn't stop shaking on the steering wheel. The closer I got to the house, the heavier my chest felt, like invisible hands were pressing down on me. But beneath the anxiety, there was this fragile, naive thread of hope. Maybe they meant it. Maybe this time they'll treat me like family. The moment I stepped inside, everything looked perfect. The table was set with their good china. Candles flickered in the center. The smell of roasted chicken and garlic filled the air, my mom's attempt at a special occasion. My brother gave me a half-hearted nod from across the room. Like we were strangers at a wedding. My mom came over, arms wide. "See, isn't this nice?" she said, her perfume overwhelming as she pulled me into a hug I didn't return. My dad clapped me on the shoulder with forced cheerfulness. For a split second, I wondered if maybe, just maybe, they had changed. And then the front door opened. I turned toward the sound of footsteps, and there he was, Mark. The same man who had cornered me at 16. The man they made me apologize to. He walked in like he belonged there, grinning, carrying a bottle of wine like this was some kind of reunion. My blood ran cold. My breath caught in my throat. "Look who's here," my dad said brightly, as my mom beamed like they'd just introduced a celebrity guest. Mark looked right at me. His eyes didn't flinch, didn't apologize. He smiled, like nothing had ever happened. In that moment, every bit of hope I'd carried in with me shattered like glass on the floor. I couldn't move. My feet were glued to the floor, my hands shaking at my sides. Every muscle in my body screamed, "Run," but my brain couldn't catch up. Mark was still smiling, waving casually like we were old friends, and my parents? My parents looked proud to have him there. I whispered, "Why is he here?" But my voice came out small, brittle. My mom's eyes narrowed. "Don't make this a scene," she said through a tight smile, like we were on a stage and she didn't want the audience to see the cracks. I looked at my dad, desperate for even a flicker of concern. Instead, he leaned in and muttered, "Grow up already." That was it. I turned and walked out, my legs barely holding me. My heart thundered in my chest, my vision blurred. I stumbled into the yard, past the perfectly trimmed hedges, and collapsed next to the rose bushes my mom took so much pride in, and I threw up, violently, over and over. Behind me, the door creaked open. My mom stormed out, heels crunching on the gravel. "What is wrong with you?" she snapped. "He apologized years ago. Why can't you just move on?" I wiped my mouth with the back of my hand, still shaking. I wanted to scream. He never apologized. He never admitted anything. He smiled in my face like it was a game, but I didn't say it. Because I finally understood something I'd refused to believe for years. They didn't protect me. Because they never believed me, and maybe, deep down, they never even cared. I looked up at her and realized I wasn't standing in front of a mother. I was staring at the reason I'd spent years feeling broken. And in that moment, something inside me snapped. I didn't go back inside. I got in my car, hands still trembling on the steering wheel, and just drove. No goodbye, no explanations. Just the sound of my tires peeling away from the house I once called home. That night, I sat in the corner of my apartment and sobbed until my throat went raw. Then I got up, grabbed my phone, and blocked every single number I had memorized since childhood. Mom, Dad, my brother, gone. I opened my laptop, deleted every saved email thread, unsubscribed from every family calendar. It wasn't just betrayal. It was a funeral. I buried the last sliver of hope that my family could ever be safe, that they could ever see me. The next day, I told my therapist everything. Every word, every look, every memory I had stuffed into the back of my chest like moldy boxes in an attic. She didn't try to fix it. She just listened. And when I said, "I feel like I'm grieving people who are still alive," she nodded slowly and said, "Because you are." I changed my number, moved apartments. I got rid of furniture they'd helped me buy. It wasn't about the couch or the coffee table. It was about cleansing, removing fingerprints from a life I was finally claiming as mine. And for the first time, the silence in my apartment wasn't heavy. It was peaceful. I didn't feel watched, judged, blamed. I felt like I was finally breathing air I chose. No more walking on eggshells. No more pretending abuse was misunderstanding. I wasn't their scapegoat anymore. I wasn't anything to them, and I was starting to be everything to myself. It had been almost a month of peace. No calls, no emails, no texts. Just quiet, healing. Then one afternoon, I stepped out of work, and there he was, leaning against my car like he had every right to be there. My brother. He didn't even say hello. Just shook his head and muttered, "You're being ridiculous." I stood frozen, keys clenched in my hand. "You hurt Mom's feelings," he continued, arms crossed. "She cries every night because of you." His voice was flat, rehearsed. Like he was sent with a script and expected me to fold the moment he opened his mouth. I stared at him for a second. Then I asked, "Did he ever touch you?" The question hung in the air like smoke. For a split second, I saw something flicker in his expression. Hesitation? Guilt? I'll never know. But then his face hardened. He scoffed and said, "You just want to be the victim." There it was, not a brother, not a protector, just another mouthpiece for the family machine. I didn't argue. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just unlocked my car, got in, and shut the door without looking back. As I pulled away, I saw him in the mirror, still standing there. Confused that his little speech didn't work, that's when it finally clicked. To them, I was never a daughter or sister. I was a problem, a threat, a story that didn't fit the image they wanted to project, and threats get silenced. So I stopped giving them the chance. From that moment on, they would never again have access to even a piece of me. A week after my brother ambushed me, my cousin texted me a screenshot. It was a Facebook post from my mother, public, visible to her hundreds of friends, church acquaintances, and coworkers. It read, "Some people just love drama, even if it costs them their family. We've done everything we can. Please pray for healing, no names." But everyone knew. Everyone knew. The likes rolled in. "Praying for you. You're such a strong mom." Teenagers these days are so entitled. I stared at the screen until my vision blurred. Not from tears, just from disbelief. Then the messages started. Distant cousins I hadn't spoken to in years messaged me with polite confusion. "Hey, what's going on? Your mom seems really upset." One even wrote, "Is there anything we can do to help you get along with your family again?" Like this was a playground argument. I didn't respond. Not to a single one, but that silence wasn't weakness. It was armor. Instead of posting back or defending myself online, I opened my journal. I wrote everything down, word for word. How they responded, what they said, the dates, the feelings, the way my body reacted in each moment. Because when people don't believe your pain, you have to document it, so they can't rewrite it later. They want to tell the world that I'm broken, rebellious, bitter, that I left them, but I know the truth. I didn't walk away to hurt them. I walked away to save myself, and if they need to spin their lies in public to feel innocent, let them. I'd rather be alone in the truth than loved for a lie, and I'll keep writing until their version doesn't matter anymore. It had been a few quiet months. I was still journaling daily, still in therapy, still reclaiming my space inch by inch. I thought I had finally put distance between myself and everything they had done to me. Then I got a message request on Instagram. It was from a girl I barely recognized, my cousin's daughter. 15 years old. We'd only met a few times at family reunions when she was little. Her profile picture was of her in a school uniform, smiling faintly. The message just said, "Can I talk to you about something?" "It's about Mark." My heart dropped. We set up a call. She was shaking. Her voice cracked as she said it. "He did it to me too. I couldn't breathe." She told me about a recent barbecue, almost identical to mine. How he followed her inside. How he made her feel trapped, small, scared. How she thought it was her fault. But then she remembered me. "I didn't know who to tell," she whispered. "But I saw what your family did to you. I knew they'd do the same to me." My chest ached like it hadn't in years. In that moment, I felt every emotion all at once. Rage, sorrow, guilt, and something else. Clarity. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't dramatic. I wasn't looking for attention. I was telling the truth. All along, I helped her file an anonymous report with CPS. I gave her the hotline number. I promised her she wasn't alone, and for the first time in this entire nightmare, I wasn't just surviving, I was protecting someone else from what I never got protected from. That night, I didn't cry. I didn't shake. I sat down, opened my journal, and wrote one sentence in bold ink. He won't get away with it again. 2 weeks after the CPS report was filed, the silence broke. A letter came in the mail. No return address, but I recognized my mother's handwriting immediately. Neat, controlled, pressed too hard into the paper, like she was trying to carve her version of the truth into my skin. I sat on my couch with it in my lap for nearly an hour before I opened it. Inside was a single page. "We know what you've done," it began. "This is beyond forgiveness now. Your cousin is confused and you are feeding her lies. You're tearing this family apart over a misunderstanding." It ended with, "We raised you better than this." I read it 3 times. My hands were shaking so hard I had to put the paper down. A few days later, I saw a Facebook post from my aunt. A photo of the entire extended family gathered in a circle, heads bowed. The caption read, "Prayer circle tonight for healing, for forgiveness, and for the peace of the household. May God restore what the devil has tried to destroy." They were all there. My parents, my brother, Even people who hadn't spoken to me in years. No one called me. No one asked if I was okay. They prayed for peace, but not for me. They didn't light candles for the girls they failed. They lit them to keep the illusion alive. I took the letter outside, struck a match, and watched it burn slowly in the sink. I didn't need their version of the truth taking up space in my home. They still denied everything, but denial doesn't erase damage, and this time, their silence wasn't going to bury me. Rock bottom didn't look like screaming or breaking things. It looked like me, sitting on the floor of my dark apartment, the only light coming from the hallway under the door. The air was still. Too still. My phone screen lit up with a call from my landlord. I didn't answer. I didn't need to. I already knew what he was going to say. Rent was overdue. Again, I'd lost hours at work. I kept calling in sick, telling them I wasn't feeling well, when really I'd been waking up in cold sweats, too anxious to leave my bed. Some days I couldn't even walk to the mailbox without feeling like I was being watched. The memories, the letters, the cousin's voice trembling on the phone, the Facebook post, they all looped in my head on repeat. My bank balance was sitting at zero. I had $347 in cash and an unopened can of soup in the pantry. That night in therapy, I broke down again. I told my therapist I was tired of being strong, that I wanted someone, anyone, to help me. She looked at me with the kindest eyes and said, "Your trauma isn't your fault, but you're healing. That's your responsibility now." I nodded, even though every part of me wanted to scream. I went home and sat in the middle of the floor. I stared at my phone. My mother's number was still blocked, but I could have unblocked it. Just one call. One "I'm sorry." One plea, but I didn't. Instead, I opened my laptop. And I applied to 3 jobs that night, not because I wasn't scared, but because I was done waiting for someone else to save me. I had already been abandoned once. I wasn't going to abandon myself too. Months passed. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel like I was just surviving. I was working 2 part-time jobs, one at a bookstore, the other at a tiny cafe tucked between a laundromat and a florist. My shifts were long, but they were mine. I was making rent, buying groceries without counting coins, sleeping through the night more often than not. Therapy wasn't about surviving the past anymore. It was about building the future. Then one afternoon, during a lull between customers, my phone buzzed with a voicemail from an unknown number. I don't know why, but I stepped outside, sat on the curb, and pressed play. It was her. My mother, her voice was soft, rehearsed. "We miss you," she said. "Your dad and I think about you every day. Please, just talk to us." A pause. Then, "You're still our daughter. We still love you." She hung up without saying goodbye. I sat there for a long moment, letting the words hang in the air. Not because they moved me, but because they didn't. There were no tears. No anger, just a quiet breath. She didn't call to apologize. She didn't say his name. She didn't take responsibility, just nostalgia wrapped in manipulation. I deleted the message, not out of spite, but because it didn't belong in my life anymore. Closure isn't something they give you with words. It's not a voicemail or a Facebook post or a teary-eyed hug at Christmas. Closure is a choice, and I had already taken mine. If you've ever been told to get over it, I see you. If you've ever sat in your bedroom wondering if maybe it was your fault. If maybe you were too sensitive, too emotional, too much, please know you're not alone. I'm not sharing this story for pity. I'm not looking for sympathy, applause, or validation from strangers. I'm sharing it because I know how loud the silence gets when no one believes you. I used to think I was broken, that there was something fundamentally wrong with me because I couldn't just move on like everyone told me to. But I've learned something they never taught me at home. You're not broken. You're just in a room full of people who keep dropping glass and blaming you for bleeding. It's not weakness to walk away. It's survival. It's not dramatic to protect your peace. It's necessary. It's not betrayal to cut off the people who handed you to your abuser and called it family. The day I started healing wasn't the day they apologized, because that day never came. It was the day I stopped waiting for them to understand me, to love me right. I don't care if they miss me. I don't care what they tell people. I don't care if they light candles or post Bible quotes or cry in church pews. What I care about is that no other girl in that family ever feels as alone as I did, and that you, yes, you know that your pain is real. Your story matters, and I will never apologize for surviving it. My new apartment isn't big. It's nothing fancy. The walls are a little uneven, and the windows rattle when it rains. But it's mine. There's a small bookshelf in the corner, filled with dog-eared paperbacks and lined journals. Plants hang from the ceiling hooks, reaching for sunlight like they finally have permission to grow. And every night I cook dinner for one, alone, but never lonely. I set the table, one plate, one glass, one quiet breath, and before I eat, I light a single candle. Not for prayer, not for mourning, but as a symbol, a flicker of what I fought to protect. This is my peace. Every once in a while, a message still slips through. A letter in the mail with no return address. A mutual cousin asking if I'll just talk to them. They're still begging for contact. Still framing it as heartbreak. They just want their daughter back, someone once told me, but they never wanted me. They wanted silence, compliance, a version of me that didn't remember what they did. I don't reply. I won't reply, because I know now. They didn't lose me because I was cruel. They lost me because they protected the wrong person and expected me to live with the damage. They called it betrayal when I left, but I call it freedom. Freedom from gaslighting. From fake apologies. From tables where I was never safe. I don't regret it. Not one moment, because they invited my abuser back into my life like nothing ever happened, and I chose myself instead. And I'd do it again tomorrow.